The other night, I lay awake in my bed, doom scrolling through X and Instagram as one does, when I saw a series of viral videos on the PKM that made me unironically hooah out loud. Because I saw the PKM machine gun attached to flying drones, unmanned remote-controlled RC cars, and even a next-generation PKZ variant. In this episode, I want to take a look at the future of one of history's favorite machine guns. The first futuristic application we're going to look at is the PKM in drone warfare. This viral video shows the weapon firing at enemy trench positions, which has added a whole new dimension to small unit tactics. But it's hard to remember that it was only in November of 2024, not that long ago, that the first ever documented use of a rifle on a drone used in combat in the history of God's good earth was confirmed. And now we're moving on to belt feds? The challenges here are numerous. The current practical tactical applications of a drone machine gun is clear to me. You could use it for suppressing fire, because this thing does have limitations. It doesn't seem to have pinpoint accuracy, even though the PKM isn't that bad usually when it comes to accuracy. You don't need an accurate PKM fire against an enemy trench. You just need to pepper the region. That would be good enough. And then maybe you could maneuver a fire team element on the enemy. It's absolutely nuts that we have a drone powerful enough to handle a medium machine gun cartridge. The PKM fires that full powered 7.62 by 54R cartridge. It is a spicy meatball. It's 19 foot-pounds of recoil energy, so it's like getting a strong shove every time it's fired. It uses the DJI Agris T30 agricultural drone. Some guy originally built it thinking that it would help spray pesticides over 40 acres of crop fields and help feed humanity. Instead, it's feeding people bullets. But before we get into that, the only way this video is possible is thanks to Odoo. Odoo prides itself on the motto, "Unity makes creative strength," and through its robust, seemingly never-ending suite of business management applications, its ability to unite with my creative workflow, for one, has proven to strengthen pretty much every aspect of my day-to-day operations. And today, I want to focus mainly on my favorite part of the platform, and what I think really differentiates it from a lot of other competitors out there, its user interface. No matter whether you're using just one application or you have many applications across multiple businesses in different cities, selecting your database to reflect exactly what you want to see is as easy as a touch of the button, and it's completely customizable. That means you can collate and function the right data at the right time, which I've found to drastically decrease the amount of time that I spend on things like balancing budgets, authorizing payroll, and checking sales trends. So if you're looking for a simple and easy to use software platform for business management, be sure to check out odoo.com. The first application is free for life. You don't even need a credit card. The drone's entire payload is about 85 pounds, which is perfect because the PKM is super light. In fact, that's one of its main claims to fame. It's about 16.5 pounds usually, so she's a feather, relatively speaking, compared to other similar weapon systems. So the drone has a powerful stabilization system, and it's made of high-strength materials that can absorb the shock without being thrown off balance too much. My first thought was, of course, that's a PKM on a drone. Why wouldn't that happen? Actually, it's weird. I haven't seen that yet. Another interesting question raised by this is exactly how accurate that PKM will be strapped up there. Here's what you need to know about PKM accuracy. With small bursts, you might be able to hit within 2 to 4 inches at 100 meters if you're a real crack shot, if you're a real PKM Chadley. However, if you're standing up unsupported and laying down that full auto from the hip like Arnold, you might hit like over a 10-minute of angle, aka nothing. And that's what I would imagine the case would be for the current iteration of flying drones, but it's only going to get better. I don't know why I said that like I'm looking forward to flying drones shooting everything. You might be able to hit the broadside of an Eastern European barn with it, but remember, according to ArmyRecognition.com, these modifications required a huge overhaul of the drone's original software and hardware. Basically, programmers had to reconfigure it to work for target acquisition and tracking the enemy instead of crop dusting. The only thing I don't understand is how it manages that spent ammo, because one of the first things I noticed when firing the PKM is that its spent links hang out one end and drag behind you everywhere you go. You got to be careful not to trip over the links, because they're what's called the non-disintegrating links. So for a drone, it would basically be like having a long spent ammo dazzler dragging out the back like toilet paper stuck on your shoe. You don't want that getting caught in a drone propeller. That would be an embarrassment for any drone operator.
This is kind of that weird thing where it's got the firepower of a 240, but you can use it in a squad role because it's more maneuverable and you can keep it up.
The way in the US Army, the way it works is there's 4 squads. The 4th squad is issued 2 of these. And then you got 2 AG gunners for it. With the PKM, you could run it differently, because that means you could put it into all 4 squads could have a PKM. Like you were saying, it doesn't have to be like this dedicated element.
The second futuristic application of the PKM shows that flying drones won't be the only thing to trigger your PTSD. It'll also be RC cars. There are nightmare beings right here on the ground living amongst us mortals. You got 2 PKs on a robot there. That clip came from early in the war. But see how it's progressed since then? Troops are now conducting entirely unmanned ground assaults with tiny ground drones that have tracks and treads and are controlled remotely from far away. They're basically RC cars with PKM machine guns. I mean, it's come a long way since the start of the war. I remember when I was a kid, I'd play around with RC cars, and I never thought I'd use that skill to murk people, but here we are. But the reason I actually like the PKM for drone combat is because of another aspect that we haven't dived too deeply into yet, which is the legendary reliability. Okay, so the PKM is famously rugged, operates in harsh conditions, and has a simple, easy to maintain design. To me, that makes it ideal for prolonged ground drone combat use because it has minimal upkeep. You don't want to have to worry about constantly maintaining it. Oh, PK on your drone? I love that for you. Since its invention in the 1960s, over 1 million PKMs have been produced and reigned all over the world. It's seen combat everywhere from Afghanistan to both sides of the war in Ukraine, even to American personnel who managed to get their hands on it. Many regular Joes believe that the PKM machine gun is one of the greatest general purpose machine guns ever put into wide-scale use by any military.
I always get a kick out of this when you look at it. It's the whole upside down AK thing. So they literally took the AK, the reliability and everything, scaled it up and then flipped it upside down.
Well, look at that clip. Look how it's paired with a thermal optic remote firing system. This is the stuff of dystopian nightmares, and I absolutely love it. Once they hook it up to ChatGPT or DeepSeek or whatever you like, us humans are definitely going to be cooked.
And I think you noticed when we were walking through the brush here, walking on kind of staggered column patrol, it's easy to walk with it. It kind of works with you. When you're working in a squad and you got other guys that got rifles, like how we were doing, you had a smaller rifle, it's easier to keep up with the rest of the team then. Because really, you're only as fast as your slowest guy. So if you're out there with a PKM, you're a little bit quicker. You're able to move a little bit faster, and your whole squad then is more mobile.
The third futuristic application of the PKM shows how reliable old technology can be paired with new systems in unexpected ways. What in God's good name am I looking at, and why can't I look away? The PK series was bolted onto the back of a Cybertruck in August of 2024. We saw the 12.7 mil version of the PK slapped on top of Cybertrucks owned by Ramzan Kadyrov. The story went viral, and it resonates with us because we're seeing cutting-edge, futuristic technology combined with historic, rugged technology like this machine gun. It's a jarring thing to see, the Cybertruck paired with a PK. It's like when you put two things together that definitely shouldn't, like chicken and waffles, they end up complementing each other somehow. So Ramzan Kadyrov runs the Chechen Republic, and he's a close ally of Putin. He claims to have sent 10,000 soldiers to fight in the war in Ukraine. He claims to have deployed the Cybertrucks with the PK to fight. This futuristic application, I think, is also not yet practical. Yes, the Cybertruck is said to have some level of armor. It's got 3mm thick 301 stainless steel. Tesla claims the Cybertruck can stop 9mm 22 rounds. Either way, the fact that the gunner is exposed in the back is a little bit more concerning to me. It would be interesting, I think, to see a remote controlled PK on top with a thermal camera that hooks up to that internal screen in the front of the... Okay, wait a second. I need to stop. I should not be giving them ideas. If we keep doom scrolling, we can see the fourth futuristic application of the PK, which is called the Next Generation PKZ. Russia still has thousands of the PKM on the front lines. On the Ukrainian side, the PKM is still standard issue, serving alongside Western machine guns that have been donated, like the M240, which might have a slight advantage in your fixed positions because you can barrel swap, and because the Bravo version, it's big. It's like Cloud's Buster Sword from Final Fantasy. It's like this. Ching! Ching! I hope my wife never watches any of these videos. I went to Arizona, got the unique opportunity to fire 2 different versions of the PK with my buddy Greg from Spartan 117 GW.
So it's a little bit more manageable from those other positions, from the shoulder, you know, from the hip, or obviously like just deploying in different positions. But any kind of like dismounted, moving and shooting, it's significantly easier, just better balance than the 240.
So one of the first things that jumped out to me personally, using the weapon that I liked, is that you can carry it at the low ready, can actually have it up with the stock up here and feel like you can operate this thing indoors. Whereas the 240, you don't want to walk into a building with that and try to clear it.
My understanding is that PKP is supposed to be better for those prolonged engagements. By all accounts, this machine gun is living up to its reputation in the traditional role, as well as a few new ones. But so what about that mysterious PKZ? What's she all about? Why'd she make me want a hua? It's supposed to replace the older PKs. It weighs approximately only 7 kilograms, and measuring at 850 millimeters in length, it's a lot lighter and more compact than its predecessors. That's the main takeaway. It enhances your maneuverability for assault units. It's like only 15 pounds. It'd be great for assaults, which is something that Russian troops are currently doing a lot of on foot. It's all about being good in confined spaces. We saw America did something similar with their paratrooper version of the SAW, and then there's lighter weight, I think Lima version of 240. The theme of small arms procurement nowadays is less is more, and that's very important for trench warfare. All that said, the PKM isn't perfect, does have some drawbacks. When I fired it, the thing kept spitting hot brass into my arm, and that sucks dick, and not in a good way. Also, the Soviets wanted the PKM to be able to use the same belts of ammo used by the older MGs still in service, like the Maxim gun or the RP-46. While this made sense from an army logistics standpoint, it also meant that the gun was stuck using belt with non-disintegrating links that would dangle off the left side as it chews through the belt. It's not so much of a problem, but as I fired it more and more, the belt gets fed through. It can snag or get tangled on things pretty easily, especially if you're assaulting forward, which I think that's the theme of today. This weapon is for offensive pushes. I know I said reliability was a huge factor, but here's something that someone disagrees with that. Ron Chaney of Battlefield Vegas gun range, he had this to say about their rental collection, quote, "Our 240s have held up better than the PKMs. We've lost 2 front trunnions and 3 rear trunnions on PKMs, but have never experienced any cracking or breaking of 240 receivers. Also, we've only lost 1 operational rod on the M240 as compared to at least 4 on the PKM. That being said, if I was a door kicker and humped them around, I'd take the PKM." End quote. The weapon itself has come a long way, right? The PK started as this wooden stock type from the 1960s variant. The one I test fired was the variant of the PK from the olden days, and then the PKM that's been upgraded with some high-speed rail systems added to it for mounting your sweet high-speed attachments. The scope on it was, well, I'll say it was pretty dang baller. This version, the PKM, is given a slightly heavier air-cooled barrel that you can't swap out in the middle of firing. So technically it doesn't need barrel swapping, which is something that any machine gunner who's watching this video right now knows that's one of the most important skills and tasks that you have to learn. So if after you firing sustained shots for like a minute straight and you're going cyclic, you need to stop at that point. You need to chill out, because otherwise you're going to warp that barrel from all the heat and you're going to destroy it. It's going to have a nice curve in it. But all that aside, I've heard that some soldiers actually prefer to have the ability to swap barrels because of that sheer volume of fire that it's subjugated to. For many years though, the main limiting factor wasn't the barrel. No one really complained about that. It was about the optics. The original version, it was hard to throw optics and attachments on. So when it comes to combat performance, soldiers definitely say that they love love the PKM, especially for things like defending trenches, defending concrete bunkers, but more than that, it excels at assaults and offensive maneuvers. To put it simply, as an average infantryman, the PKM, she handles well. They call it ergonomics, but I call it quality of life improvements because I have trouble pronouncing ergonomics. Ergonomics, because I think the PKM is absolutely amazing and I have nothing but respect for it, and my respect is only increased after I got hands-on with it. I think the layout of the PKM has clearly inspired some of the latest GMPGs, general purpose machine guns, that we're seeing in the United States, like the XM250. The PKM, I found that I could hold the system kind of like a rifle. In general, the system's easier to walk with on patrol, to run around with, compared to original versions of the M240, like the M240 Bravo. There's something I did find mildly infuriating though. And the thing was, when you fired it, the shells are ejected, hot spent shell casing straight into your arms. I earned a couple of burn marks for not being careful. But if you're wearing a long sleeve uniform or something, and you're not trying to show off how jacked you are, it shouldn't be an issue. There's also another way of firing it with your hand up top that, prevents you from getting destroyed. This was actually originally created with the help and blessing of the inventor of the AK-47 himself, the infamous Mikhail Kalashnikov. If only Kalashnikov had lived long enough to see his invention flying through the air attached to drones. I don't think he'd be rolling in his grave if he knew that was happening. I think he'd be super stoked in his grave. So the way it worked was you take the proven AK-47 gas system, you turn it upside down to allow for that belt-fed mechanism, then you beefcake it up to handle the more powerful round and give it an additional gas regulator valve. It proved to be a successful, cheaper build and more reliable in trials than its competitors. So by 1969, the slightly improved PKM version was introduced, exported and licensed, produced in various versions all over the commie world. And a PKM machine gun was also widely sold or supplied to rebel and insurgent groups in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. It's even in use by Finland, NATO's second most recent member. I believe there's some in Poland. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do not kill me in the comments. It fills a role similar to the American M60 and then the 240. The PKM is a general purpose machine gun, meaning that it fires that full powered rifle, but it's also light enough to be used either as a tripod mounted medium machine gun or an infantry light carry light machine gun. It can be everywhere and anything. It is the people pleaser of machine guns. Anyone who's ever carried a 240 plus ammo and spare barrels will tell you how much they wish they could shave 10 pounds off that thing. Offering the same suppressive fire capabilities as Western MGs at a lighter weight means that gunners can carry more ammo over longer distances. Plus, the gun itself is handier and more nimble when forced to run and gun. Now, since then, of course, there have been new weapons like the XM250 that has come out that is very impressive, lightweight, similar weight, with higher firepower, but we're talking about comparing the PK to weapons of its time, let's say. So join me as we doom scroll one last time. Yes, sir, that was cathartic, a bit of full send moment of zen. On Wednesday, February 26th, tomorrow, I'm releasing a pepperbox special combat footage analysis episode looking at some recent footage of the PKM in war, so we'll be able to take a better look at its performance. Put the link in the description below to get 2 weeks free trial to decide whether you like it or not, and then it's $7.99 a month after that if you do. It helps support the wider journalism pieces that I do and the content that I create here that we produce for free. Thank you guys for watching Spare Parts Army. I'm your average infantryman, Chris Cappy. You can find me at Cappy Army on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you guys again soon, hopefully.